Hi, I'm Saro. I'm the councilwoman of Long Beach City Council District 6.
Yeah. Should have done this in the beginning, but I kind of forgot.
No worries, I always forget to introduce myself too, and I'm like, oh, nobody even knows who I am. I just start talking. I think that in order to talk about how I got here, I have to talk about where I came from. And that is, my family came here from Cambodia in 1982 in May as refugees from Cambodia after the genocide. So we resided in refugee camps where I was born before I came here. And so when we resettled here, one of the first places we lived in was downtown LA. And the reason why we lived there was because it was close to the sweatshops, the garment factories. That's where they hire a lot of immigrants and refugees who are looking for employment, right? And so I grew up during the summers going to the garment factories with my family and worked there helping to bag things and cut loose threads at a really early age. So I grew up in an environment where there's working class immigrant folks. And so as I continue on in my educational process, which I was lost in because nobody really took the time to notice that I had challenges learning because I couldn't understand what was happening, right? We didn't speak English in the household, so I had a hard time understanding what was happening in the classroom. But eventually was able to figure out how to excel in school by becoming self-sufficient, right? So I've been an advocate early on because of having to navigate through the system and working in these environments, that it became natural for me to advocate for my family and then also my community, right? And so that's really what kind of led me to be able to go into higher education, was I knew that that was a pathway out of poverty. So I ended up going to UC Santa Cruz because that's where my friend was going to go. I had no experience or understanding on what it means to go into higher education. So I ended up getting a molecular cellular developmental biology degree because I thought that was the only way you could become a doctor, because I wanted to help. My first and foremost goal was to help the community. But then I realized, gosh, I'm terrible at science, you know, but I've already stuck in this degree. So I finished it, I flunked the MCAT, and I decided to change my direction and go back to working with people, and the passion is to serve the community. So I started out on this journey in being a labor organizer, working for a nonprofit here in Long Beach. Really grassroots work that built up to being kind of doing advocacy with Asian American Advancing Justice LA, and then leading up to working in legislation, and then deciding that, you know, in order to really scale the impact I can make was to be in an elected position that can change policy. So that's how I ended up working, deciding to run, was because it was really about using my personal challenges and experience that guide me in my passion and how I wanted to make change. Well, I think that there are many moments. I don't think that you'll have like this aha moments, because it's really when you're, I think, hitting moments of challenges, which are moments of growth, that demonstrates to you, you know, how are you able to manage these obstacles in a way and where is this somewhere you want to continue to build on. So after I graduated from college, getting a biology degree, not knowing now I'm not very good at it, like, what do I do with my life, right? I have no mentors. My parents can't offer me guidance. So what I did is I went to visit my good friend who I went to college with, spent time with her and her family who were from the labor community, and decided to just go on a ride called Immigrant Workers Freedom Ride and to share my story. And that's when I realized, wow, this is who I am, is my history, my experience of having grown up working in the garment factory, the struggles I've had with, you know, being the child of refugees. So that was really hard, right? When you get out of college, or like you're in college now, and you're thinking, well, what am I going to do in my life? It was even harder when you have nobody, I was not in any program, had no mentors, I had no idea, and I had this pressure, right, to get a job and help my family. So I realized really it wasn't so much about a job, but really where is my passion? And I found that just deciding to go visit my friend, and then ended up, after the ride, becoming a labor organizer, was to help improve the condition of people's lives. So that was a journey, and that's why I would say it's not one defining moment. It's really many moments that help you think and dig in deeper about who you are and what purpose you have in this kind of world, right? Well, I started it because of the work I was doing here, right? I was already a labor organizer. I knew that employment, or pathway to employment, was economic security, especially for women, especially the most vulnerable, right? So when I started that happened to be the time when my who's now my husband, then boyfriend, we went there together. He grew up there. He introduced me to a friend who had similar interests and passion in wanting to help women through vocational training. So, you know, and I think this is where it's just, I never am afraid to take chances and just pilot something. So I decided with her, hey, why don't we just finish building the second story of your family's home and start a workshop up there, and you learn, you're a designer, you design the bags, and then we'll train these people we bring on to make bags. You know, I'm 23 at that time, had all these dreams and hopes, right? But we did it, we had a vision, and I think what made us successful to this day is because we never gave up. We always persevered through all of these challenges, especially when we didn't know how to do something. I mean, I was managing the business side, and I'm not a business person, but I learned to do it, right? And so how that connects back to here is that I still very much am connected to what happens not only in Cambodia, but what happened globally also impacts us in the US and how we do things. We know when there's a war in another country, it's going to impact us economically here. Well, I think that for me, it's knowing that I'm one of the very few electeds, especially women, in the United States, and the first in Long Beach, right? So I have a responsibility I know I carry of representing my community at this level. And while I don't look at it as too much pressure, but as an opportunity to be able to help change the image of how people might have viewed Cambodians, or if they didn't know about us, how do I represent us in the best light? Because there's always been a lot of stereotypes about us in a negative light, and I'm just seeing it always an opportunity to change the narrative of how people viewed, not just being Cambodian, but one of the only API person on council. And even though we have almost 60,000 API, we have little voice here in Long Beach. But I also think about who else I represent, or like moms. I represent working families. So I think about myself as a whole, and being a woman, being Cambodian is part of it. I shared with you my journey and how important it is to connect with people. That makes it so that I'm no different from you or you, is that we both are in different places in our journey, and I'm here to be able to be a voice for all of the people, and to do whatever I can, right, to make people's lives better. So that's kind of where I don't really think about it too much as the position, as more as like, what can I do to make sure we all work together? So I guess in that way I take that pressure off, because it's not up to me, right? I have to figure out, well, how do I activate 50,000 residents that I represent and the people that live in there to empower them and be their own voice while I'm doing it right now on council. I hope that they will, or their children will, right, be able to be involved and speak up for the things they need. So, and so I guess that's kind of the way that I just view being an elected role, because really you're kind of an organizer in this position. Well, there's definitely more of us. I feel like there's always been few in general, but there's more throughout the United States, and I think that it just also demonstrates there's more API women seeing that they can see themselves in this role. Especially when you have additional responsibility as you get older. I have 2 children. obviously, and I have a partner, my husband as well, and my son's 10 and my daughter's turning 6, right? And I have aging parents. So you're gonna always, no matter what stage in your life, have something always going on with your family. So it's really, I think, being able to manage all of that and know that you can still be a leader and not feel that pressure, I think, to be perfect, right? It's really about to being effective and really meeting your purpose. In the end of the day, I think I take that pressure off because I always do a reality check every day. How did today go? Did I communicate that well to my team so that they felt successful? Did the community feel supported today, or did they feel heard when I finally fixed their sidewalk, right? So I think about measures of success in that way. I'm sorry, I'm diverging a little bit, but I feel like that's kind of where it's always going to be a juggle, but I think more of us see ourselves in these elected roles and how do we manage that, and that in the end, just go for it, right? Yeah, it goes back to what I just shared with you. You know, when you're a labor organizer, you're working with workers to help them consider how do they change their situation, right? But that also means you have to move them to doing things that are uncomfortable, like going on a strike or signing a petition to show that you don't want to accept the condition you're in. So it took having to meet with workers and building trust and making a connection in order for them to feel that they're in a place to take that action. So that stays with me, and then it continues to stay with me, because when I ask people to vote for me, I have to build that relationship one-on-one at times, or having volunteers do that in order to have them feel there's a confidence to getting me elected. You know, one of the things I hope will happen is, as more of us get elected, is doing things like this is really helping to support the next generation. As we move forward, we need to make sure we're building other leaders too. I hire staff intentionally that comes from the community and who might not have otherwise also had the opportunity to work in an elected office. So I have a team of people who grew up in this district, never would have worked in an elected office otherwise because they never saw themselves in these places. But I really feel like they have their strength, and obviously just needs the support in order to be able to move forward, right? So as much as like it's great if we all come together and continue to build power, that's something I think we need to do and work together to lift up all of the Asian Pacific Islander voices, right? We tend to work in our silos, sometimes by city or by, racial groups, whether it's, our ethnic group, I should say. I think it's always important to continue to always build broad API coalition given how diverse our community is. But I wanted to emphasize the leadership development first, because I don't think we do that enough intentionally, and I think we need to keep doing that. So that's why it's great you guys are all in this program, and that continue to do what it does. Yeah, so I think that as much as many Cambodians have come here in the aftermath of the genocide in the early 80s, some right in the mid-70s, dealing with how do you pretty much adjust and live in the U.S. And I think that the challenges my generation face is still making sure that there are youth who are achieving higher education, but I think also making sure that we work together in our community to build the community and continue to promote and help promote a positive image of who we are. There's so much that was lost, and so a lot of what we're trying to do is preserve our culture through arts, dance, language, most importantly. So one of the first item I introduced in City Council is to start doing a feasibility study for Cambodian American Cultural Center here in Long Beach. So right now we're getting a steering committee together and really trying to get as much vision and input from everybody as possible. So that's the ongoing challenge, is working together and making sure to lift each other's voice up. Probably no different than any other, I think, ethnic groups. Well, I think first of all, a lot of what you're doing is the first good step, which is learning more about the environment. Obviously, studying about it is great in school. As you know, the rubber meets the road when you actually are in these spaces, and what does it really look like in reality versus what you read. And I think that I would encourage you to also seek out opportunities to serve on commissions. City commissions, they're always looking for. And again, I don't think you're too young to start, and I think that if they're saying you are, then that's when you should say, no, I have something I want to offer. And you should be so lucky to get it, right? But that's where I would say commissions, there are opportunities to start exposing yourself to the diverse offices that exist beyond just city. There's school board to water board to city college trustees. There's so many spaces that we need your voice in, and it's really seeing, well, where do you feel like you want to serve and offer that voice, right? For me, it just happened to be city council because of just the timing and the experience that kind of led me to this position. So, and it's really each and everybody's individual journey to find out what that is. But what's really important first is finding what's your purpose, right? Before you decide what position you should look for.